Our guest is in the studio. We are privileged to have with us this morning the President of Kenya, Law Society of Kenya.
I saw
Faith
that.
Odhiambo, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
I'm telling people who are watching us that yes, it's cold. Now you look at the president. It's called presidential dressing.
I'm telling you.
Warm. You've got
Very
to be warm.
Yeah.
You've been very, very busy the last couple of days, Faith.
Yeah.
You and several of your members. You're here so that you can tell us what this has been about, and also so we can learn the lessons. Rule of law, constitutionalism, the rights of the people, and also the responsibilities of everybody, including those in positions of government. To welcome you to this conversation, CT will give you the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs have been from the Islamic Republic of Mauritania.
Yes, and this is our final proverb for this week, and our final proverb from the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. What a child says, they have heard from home.
What a child says, they have heard from home.
I'd say that charity starts at home. Mm-hmm. Most people are influenced by what their parents say, what their parents do, and or those who have given their caregivers from their nascent years. So the seeds that you plant to the young, your young ones, is what they're going to carry on. But I don't think that applies to the Gen Zs.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
You don't think what we were seeing this last couple of days is actually coming from what they see and hear from home?
You are hearing stories of people who are saying they are blocking their mothers and fathers because they're telling them, no, you can't do this, or you can't go to the streets. One said that his dad has told him, I can't. If you go to the streets, I will not bail you. In fact, one said, say hi to my dad. I'm sharing his number. So I don't think that is applying to the Gen Zs this time around. They're a new kind of crop,
They are completely defiant.
Yeah.
Is that really the case?
Well, maybe you could say the roots, they'll eventually cocoon somewhere, but I think there's a different kind of fire. It's a non-complacent fire. As much as parents, you've seen so many in conversations with their parents, and they're telling their parents, no, we are still going to the streets, irrespective of what you say. I'll still be there with everyone else. In fact, some were saying you're the one who's gotten us to this problem, because you're part of the people who steal, or either you're part of the people who just accept. So we are not listening to you.
Boy.
You should listen to those Twitter spaces.
Don't you think they've been hearing our complaints? Yeah, we are complaining at home. It's just that we've been feeling hopeless. But we've just been complaining, and that's why they were able to tell, we just see our parents here all the time. They're just complaining. Every day they come home.
Oh, this government.
What to? And they decided to do something about it.
Well, yes, I think listening to the complaints, but as well starting to feel the pinch directly as younger persons, because when they're saying that they want to work in their country, they don't want to go to school the way you're told, enda shule kijana, and then you will get a job. That's not the case in Kenya anymore. Your parents can sell everything, take you out of the country. You come back, you can't get an opportunity. And so there's that clear realization of the challenges that they're having. The doctors had a strike, the intern doctors. And if doctors can't get work, can't get that sustainability, they're telling themselves, so which profession should you do in this country? So I think slowly they started sparking that discussion, and it ended. The main problem is the finance bill.
Right.
So I in fact, looking at it, the history surrounding it, because I thought it was more of professionals talking about what it's going to mean for the different industries in the country. We gave our memorandum in Parliament, but slowly we saw on social media a storm brewing slowly, and I thought it would end on Twitter. But they proved everyone wrong when they ended up in the streets.
okay, this happened, and we started to see protests. And then we saw it very clearly also from your office and other representatives that, first of all, there was legal representation. And we saw that there was this widespread representation, specifically at police stations. And then, of course, the LSK very, very emboldened and saying, you know what, we're going to start processing and we're going to start making sure that bail is available, up until the point whereby there was even the request for charges against protesters who had been arrested, for those charges to be dropped completely. Those are some of the things that you pushed for. Why was that? And how did that happen in that manner?
Well, when the protest started on Tuesday, I asked my counsel, we know what happens in police stations, the illegal detentions, and if we don't, we're not vigilant, then we're going to see things escalating out of hand. So we ensured from the very first day, on the very first Tuesday, because it was pretty much peaceful, that we divided ourselves. In fact, there were 3 main police stations that people were being taken to. So it was a bit quite easy to just quickly move and share out responsibilities and say, you're stationed here, you're stationed here, you're stationed here. And ensuring that we insisted, even irrespective of the first day. In fact, we were actually tear gassed at Central Police Station, and they refused. So the OCS says he's not dealing with anyone until about 6 p.m. So we said, don't worry, we're going to come back. So in fact, we came back and we were more in number. And we were able to insist until they processed. We told them either you're charging these people or you're releasing them. There's nothing like the people don't have the right to protest. There's no charge known in law. As long as they were not destroying property, as long as they were not engaging in any criminal activities, then they ought to be released. So on the first day, we got pretty much everyone released on free board without any charge. The unfortunate thing is there are obviously some cat and mouse games, because later on, after we released the ones we got, others were brought later in the night. So we had to wake up again at the police stations very early in the morning. Well, so that went well on Monday and Wednesday. Then Thursday came and things even got more heated and escalated, and they found they are not keeping anyone, they weren't arresting anyone. And I remember on Thursday evening, we were particularly chased from Central Police Station, even because we were saying it's past 6. We are here at the police station. They don't want anyone at the gate. They don't want anyone at the vicinity. And we're like, well, we're not at the gate of Central Police Station. We're standing closer to the University of Nairobi. So what is the problem? So they came like about armed 7 people. They're insisting we must leave. I said, we're not leaving. In fact, the more you insist that we are leaving is when we think that there's a sinister motive. So we hung around there till about 9:30. Then we left. Then we had later on, they brought in people in the night. So this systematic conduct of the National Police Service to try and detain people for long, instead of charging people if you believe they have actually committed a crime, is becoming a systematic problem in this country. Even as late as yesterday, my members were calling me that, it's around 7 p.m. We're being told we are not allowed to see anyone. We serve them with the court order saying we should be allowed to access and see those who have been arrested. But still they're defined that the OCS is not here, and so you're not allowed to come into the police station. I'm like, what have the laws come to an end in this country that during demonstrations you're not allowed to get into police stations? And I find it quite even disappointing from the judiciary that they're not taking action against some of these police officers for contempt, because once a court order is issued, you must obey those court orders unless they have been set aside or they have been appealed upon. So with the police service and most of these police stations, I think it's just extra vigilance and persistence. I think that's the only way that we can avoid certain people being detained, because you find certain people disappear for days, then they'll turn out they were being hidden at one police station or another.
Those that were actually the word we've been using is abducted.
Yeah.
Because people come in the middle of the night and they pick you up with no communication at all. You have successfully managed to get several of them to be freed. What do they tell you? How does this abduction, what is the chronology of the abductions?
Well, one told me that they came to his house. They just pushed through the door. The first thing they did was ask, where's your laptop? He pointed where the laptop was.
So at what time do they come to the house?
In fact, one was during the day.
Daytime?
Yeah, most at night.
Okay.
But one was during the day. They came in, they said, where is your laptop?
Do they identify themselves?
No, they don't identify. It's only one. I think it's Frankie, that he was with a colleague or a relative in the office, and they identified themselves.
Right.
So that they have come looking for who they're from, this division of the police. And so then the next thing is they asked him for his phone. So he'd switched off. He immediately switched off his phone. Yeah. So they said, open your phone and give us the password. So he refused. So they started slapping him around and hitting him. And he still refused to do so. So the next thing he says, they grab one of his T-shirts. The girlfriend tries to take a picture of what's happening. They chase her out of the house. So they put a T-shirt around his head. They handcuff him. And he's taken out. The one for Frankie, they just picked him up. And
were they able to establish that they were police? Or they just established that they were armed? What was the...
they came fully armed. In fact, one, they came to his house in the very wee hours of the morning. So there are 8 people they said they tell you either open or we open and things will be worse for you.
So there's a threat.
Yes.
Open or.
Yes.
We shall break and.
Yes.
Okay.
So, in fact, he then just opens the door, but before he could say something, they put something over his head and they zip lock his hands. So then they put him out, then they go for the second person in the house, and they do the same and they pick them out. And, most of them cannot tell where they are. And, Dr. Austin's story, he was just from doing a blood drive. He was picked up the same way. He was with his brother. They pushed him into the car. When they noticed that 3 cars have come all of a sudden, they tried to run back where they were doing the blood drive. But they managed to catch him and they dragged him into the car, pushed him in, and they all drove off. So when they come out, most are visibly very shaken. In fact, Dr. Austin had been kept for just a few hours, but he was highly shaken. And the first day, he was not willing to speak to anyone.
Wow.
One, he decided to go to the village. He just said he needs a time out. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He thinks he'll be safe when he's with his mother. So if they want to come and kill him, let them kill him with his mother. Yeah, so the saddest thing that I feel with all these abductions that are going on, and they are actually abductions, because if you're abducted for ransom, they would ask for a ransom. When we put the heat on in terms of making noise and creating awareness and demanding their release, they're thrown in either some forest somewhere along the road. It's crazy circumstances in how they get released. So the challenge is that I feel like we're going to a very dangerous era in our country because we have a history in this nation.
These kind of things have happened before.
They have happened
I'm
before.
still interested to hear because you're saying, for example, one person was just kept for a few hours. They come out. They don't have any visible physical injury.
In fact, for all of them, there is no visible
physical injury, none at all.
Yeah.
But they are so traumatized that they do not want to speak.
Yeah.
Later, when they begin to speak, do they give any indication of what was going on during that time?
Well, some give tidbits. Some say, there are these threats that they say that, do we do for him the way we did for a different person and finish him and throw him at the kahawa trees there, or This one, do we torture or do what? So it's veiled threats that keep building. And some tell him, you should be careful because the main boss, when he comes, it means something different. So if I was
we are the good guys.
Yeah, you'd rather cooperate and, creating fear.
Right.
Because these are quite young people, and I don't think they know or feel the Moi era or what it was. So it's just instilling that sense of fear that we can harm you, we can maim you, we can do things to you.
But what questions are they asking of them? What are they asking them?
Around who are your friends, what do you hang out, what's your involvement in all this, what was going on for the euphoria, what contribution have you made, where are you getting your sources of finances and things like that. So it's mainly around trying to get where they were getting the funding from, who are your supporters, who do you communicate with, who is giving you this kind of ideas and things like that.
But all of them face at the end of the day when they're released from a police station.
No.
Where are they released?
I told you, like you had Dr. Austin, he was thrown out of a truck somewhere. One was found at Kijabe, is it Kijabe or somewhere, some forest? Some two were thrown in some place outskirts of Karen. It's only one who was released yesterday. He was found at a police station in Thika. In fact, hardly are they found at police station. So they're thrown at the side of the road. I remember one of them, she was dropped somewhere in Parklands, and I think maybe the fear or shock, she was so confused, yet she knows she's in Parklands, but she's petrified. She
doesn't exactly know what to do next.
Yes.
So there's something that's happening to them when they've been abducted.
Yeah.
And there's something that's happening of a psychological nature, so much so that when they come out, they're not willing to speak and they're scared to the bone. We witnessed this yesterday with one, that we wanted to be able to speak to today. And his words to me were, absolutely not. I will not do another media conversation after what happened. So, it's clear that something is going on.
Yeah.
But the question comes out here from a legal point of view, who then polices? Because, the assumption is that this is police.
The assumption that it is indeed police, because as we raised the noise, they eventually released. And you see, the problem is you don't know which section of the police is doing it. Is it the National Police Service? Is it the DCI? Is it, as the Deputy President was saying, the NIS? So, or is it the ATPU? You really don't know which police service it is, because most of them say their heads were covered the entire time. Throughout.
So they never even saw.
They didn't
the people that were interrogating them.
They would describe, some were put on a bed, some were made to sit somewhere, some were on a cold floor. So no one really knows where they were. So there's no tracing to say. So that's why it can only be a command responsibility in this country, because as these abductions are happening, we have our cabinet secretaries in charge of, they're in charge of, to ensure that the security. We have the National Police Service Inspector General, who is in charge of all these units. So we hold command responsibility, because ideally they cannot tell us where they were. The funny thing, like Nyayo torture chambers, it was right under where everyone is moving in and out and is so busy. You couldn't even believe that there are torture chambers right there.
Yep. 2 days ago, it was the International Day on Torture Victims, basically just highlighting the plight of people who are tortured. And, of course, what these people have gone through is torture. And this country has ratified the protocol, UN protocols on torture. There are laws on torture. Some of them have not been operationalized. We've heard about this. But then we heard from the president saying that under my administration, we are not going to have this kind of extrajudicial killings and police operations. So then there's a disconnect. Because on the one hand, the president is saying, not on my watch. can there be something like this happening? And as he's saying that, there are people who are actually going through this.
You know, it's quite dishonest, because even in his second speech, which was much better than the first one, he says that there are only 6 people who have died. And people can attest the large number of people who have died. And he's not apologetic. He says they will, they'll be
accounted for.
They'll be accounted. What does accounted for mean? And, the killings have continued post his speech. So how do you tell people or expect the citizens to trust you, yet the killings are still going on?
The president of the Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, is our guest this morning. The Law Society has been very, very active in this protest that we've seen so far in the country, in terms of just coming to support those that have been arrested, those that have been taken to police stations, those that have disappeared without a trace, and just working so hard at trying to trace them and giving them the support that they require. They still, I'm sure, these people need a lot of psychosocial support. We need to find out, are they getting it? Do they have access to it? And so on and so forth. From what you've seen, as you go to try and represent people who have been arrested because of participating in the protests, as you go to help secure the release of those that have been abducted, and what you see and hear from them as you speak to them and you try to debrief them, and they are clearly traumatized, they have clearly been tortured, and then you look at the conversation that's coming from the government. Let's start with the Ministry for Interior, then going to the IG of Police and the Command of Police. Do you hear anything of them acknowledging that they've done something wrong?
There's absolutely no acknowledgement. In fact, the last statement that CS Kindiki made, he was trying to illegally curtail the constitutional rights to picket. And that's all he spoke about, warning people. The IG, I think he has played a disappearing act. I don't remember listening to him saying anything. The head of state talks about, yes, people have died, but he's aware of 6 people. The reality is, if we want to move this country to the next level and way forward to reconciliation, it must start with the justice of these victims. We cannot say that we're sweeping under the carpet. People being shot point blank, people who are not armed there with their water bottles. There's so much pictorial. And the same killer cop yesterday you saw shooting at journalists because they were taking his picture. He shoots a tear gas cannon at close range, and he does it in a callous way, like, I'm showing you I have power. And the fact that no action has been taken against him to date, irrespective of the president talking quite diplomatic. In fact, I was hearing some of the spaces, people were saying the first speech was for us Kenyans, the second one was for the international community. So there's totally mistrust with the current government, and because they speak one way and do something different, that's why Kenyans still do not believe, and that's why they were on the streets yesterday, and that's why they are planning again to come back on the streets, irrespective of the Kenya Defence Forces being deployed. Kenyans are saying that they are not going to relent because they do not trust the powers that be, that they will uphold the promises, because they still see the bloodshed and they say you won't kill us all, so we'll keep coming.
Are you saying, Madam President, that what we're seeing is there was an existing dissatisfaction either with the government or with the president or with parliament or with the government? Because government, we forget, is executive, it's parliament, and it is the judiciary.
Let me tell you this. There's an existing disappointment with government. I would say that first with the executive, the kind of policies that they're churning out that are exclusionary. Look at the healthcare policies. Look at how the education has gone down the drain. And these are things, tangible issues that the Gen Zs were talking about. They're talking about the experience, how their parents are struggling. They would want government to actually supplement education so that their struggling parents don't have to struggle. And this is the country that their parents are being heavily taxed. They're talking about SHIF and how, payments have come up, yet services have reduced, that the government is out to just make money. You know, even right at the heart of when all the satisfaction, the CS announces that cancer screening will only be for over 55. Cancer comes at every age. We've had cases of people in their 20s getting cancer.
Children get cancer.
Yeah, children get cancer. So if you're saying that only over 55 will access cancer screening, what are you telling them? Everyone should look for a private cover, yet pay higher health services. They're talking about how the economy cannot work. Even people who are trying to set up businesses, a lot of them are making money on the online platform. So when government wants to lodge heavier taxes on that, so meaning they'll make almost nothing because most are unemployed. So this is their hope that they can launch themselves, because in other countries, they're able to have multi-million dollar industry develop. But the problem, the kind of policies that government is executive is giving is killing the nascent industries, yet going out to welcome other industries to come. You give them tax haven of 5 years. 5 years comes, they've left the country. Yet the very internal industries that are supposed to go are struggling and closing down. Let's go to Parliament. Parliament, I think, is the greatest disappointment. This is the worst Parliament we're not even 2 years yet. I've never seen a more callous, irresponsible parliament than this one, who are not reading. They dare tell the people that the bill was as big as a Bible. How can I read all of that? They asked questions. They do not understand even the subject of what you're talking about, yet you're supposed to sit in parliament. We have members of parliament who only appear to vote once or twice in a year on very serious government bills. Yes, people, we have never seen in history the head of state calling parliament to agree on things. Then you see the latter being announced in parliament. You know, even when they were agreeing on some of the concessions before the rejection of the finance bill, it was done at state. It was done together as a party. Then it was announced in parliament. This is highly irresponsible, showing there's no independent parliament. We have sponges who take orders and execute. I'm sorry to say this is the most irresponsible parliament that is not representing the people of Kenya. None are listening, and that's why when they're going back home, you're seeing the kind of retaliation. They're being chased out from their chamas, they're being chased out from their constituencies, because people are still angry that you are putting a deaf ear to the pleas and cries. To the judiciary, we still have irresponsible judges and corrupt judges and magistrates. For LSK, that war is still coming for corruption. So they should not think that we are not coming for them. We are coming for them. Let's deal with the issues that we're having right now. But if you have judges and magistrates that do not see the challenges that are there, and I think the criminal division, they sat through long hours to listen and hear till almost 11 p.m. some of the accused persons that were purposely brought late by the OCS in Central Police Station. And, you know, that kind of frustration. But irrespective of that, the judges, the clerks, they sat through the night to ensure that all those matters were heard and issued orders and signed those orders. So I commend that work that they did and the sacrifice they are making for Kenyans. But as long as we still have bad apples, I'm still challenging the Chief Justice. She must either shape up or shape out, because it is quite important that people should start believing in institutions. If people are losing hope even in the judiciary, then people will go back to the streets. Because if people at this particular plight already showing for a finance bill, they are ready to die. I remember one of the ladies in a church said she'd rather die standing than live on her knees. These are strong statements coming from our younger generation. So if people don't believe that courts can give them justice, people will go and get their own justice. And this is a wake-up call, particularly to the judiciary, that when the next election comes, if they do not shape and put their act together, no one will be coming to file petitions. People will be on the streets fighting. And so we need to regain that trust in the judiciary.
Well, you took something else to the judiciary, and that was basically asking the court to hold or to stay the order on asking that KDF be deployed. What was the reasoning? What was the rationale behind that?
Well, the judge, which we respect his decision, and I respectfully disagree, that his position was that what happened on Tuesday amounted to an emergency because the office of the Chief Justice was broken into the Supreme Court and as well as Parliament. So that necessitated an emergency. And irrespective of bringing out the fact that constitutional elements were not met, he proceeds to give them leeway to go and gazette a new gazette and also give guidelines, and that he will leave the file open. You know, if you felt the mood even of people in that in that forum, over 1,000 Kenyans were filled to the brim watching that decision. And first of all, the decision kept being pulled back, bringing again that anxiety when people are saying phone calls are being received. So the thing of pushing the ruling then from one link to another, in fact, I was not able to enter the final link because there was no access. But the fact is that the rumor that we are waiting for your decision and people are dying. People are being killed. And yet you're sitting pretty, we are waiting for your decision. And so I think the judiciary needs a wake-up call. And I remember something stuck that the judge said that on one hand is protection of life and property, on the other hand is the right to picket. And I asked myself, I wanted to stop him and ask, which life are you talking about? Are people shooting each other? Are protesters shooting each other? Are protesters launching tear gas canisters against each other? So you can't tell me that the police and the Kenya Defence Forces are protecting life. They're actually the ones taking life. So if those are part of your thinking and parameters, then I'm sorry. And as much as I may respectfully disagree, it's the decision of the court and we have to abide by it. But I say that it's like our courts are also living in a different world, as opposed to the world that people are living in. And maybe when it happens to one of their people is when it will hit home that you need to protect. And I say this is a very dangerous precedent that is setting, that when the government deems that something has happened, that it's an emergency, then they can deploy and everything can be, the rest, the legal issues can follow after.
Follow later. What was the main contention? What was LSK's contention? And I still feel that you still have the same contention.
You see, our contention was that before you deploy, there are procedures that you ought to follow. They ought to have come under Article 241(3)(c). And that is what they tried to do after the fact.
What does it say?
Well, Article 42(3)(1)(c) talks about before deployment, you have to go to Parliament for approval. And after, in fact, there's a declaration by the CS, there's an imminent issue, there's a mutiny or there's an unrest that needs to be dealt with. 2, you go to Parliament for approval. Parliament gives you parameters and you report regularly to Parliament. What we have is a carte blanche that the army has. They can go anywhere in the country anytime. There's no limitation. Secondly, you do not know how many have been deployed and what are their ranks, what are their terms of reference. All of those things are not known, and how they will be reporting to Parliament. What we saw was parliamentarians rushing and approving in 30 minutes, and it wasn't even a full house. It's like the executive agreed, we're going to do this, so make sure you're here by this time, record time, that is.
So there was an emergency?
According to the courts, there was an emergency. And, our argument was that this cannot be construed as an emergency. A country that has all the apparatus of security would be able to see the escalation that was growing, unless this was purposely organized to ensure, let things happen so that they can deploy the army. Because you can't tell me it was a surprise to all these security agencies that we're having in this nation.
Actually, I tend to agree with that judge. There was an emergency, but I think he missed a step. The emergency was when the power of the citizenry was usurped by Parliament. When they were being told, and the public was outside the doors of Parliament saying, we don't want this bill, and they proceeded to pass it. That was the emergency. And the deployment should have taken place, but the deployment should have been policemen going to arrest the members of parliament, because they had clearly broken the law. The sovereign had spoken. The sovereign had said, but they completely ignored what their bosses were saying, contrary to the law. So yes, we understand the judgment, but that particular justice missed the point. The focus should have been on the legislators who decided to ignore, because it's the ignoring of what their bosses were telling them, the sovereign was telling them, that has put us in this uncomfortable position we find ourselves in right now.
Are the right words emergency or unrest? Because even the part of the Constitution that we are quoting here, 241 3C, is that the defense forces may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya if affected by unrest or instability, only with the approval of the National Assembly.
So what they did is that they came under B, saying that it's an emergency. There are two terms there. So they came under emergency, that this was an emergency.
So B says, let me just read B, that the defense forces shall assist and cooperate with other authorities in situations of emergency or disaster and report to the National Assembly whenever deployed in such circumstances.
You see, if you're reporting to the National Assembly, meaning there ought to have been an oversight. And to get that oversight, you must seek approval. So everything was done after the fact. So they were deployed. So according to the learned judge's reasoning, that at that particular point, there was an emergency and there was need to immediately deploy, and then the rest could follow. And that's why I say it's a very dangerous precedent, because it means that this can be whipped out every time, that this is an emergency, this is an unrest, and we have judicial precedent agreeing with us. So you're setting a very dangerous precedent that can be used continuously, and we can have a state that is ruling the nation by use of fear, using the army. You know, seeing the kind of the army trucks that was on the streets yesterday, I'm like, is this a movie that we're watching next to? You're seeing University of Nairobi, they're there in the heart of the city center, they're there. Even if you have so much bravery, man, seeing someone in a tank, that they have machine gun this side and the other side, there's so much braveness that someone can express.
Where does it lead? And I think this is the question for lots of folks who wake up today. And this is right here, who wake up today and have lost loved ones. Yesterday, I mean, it breaks my heart into 1,000 pieces that we see children
being shot.
And of course, we still do not know the exact details of what occurred in Githurai night before last. We don't know what happened. But where does it all lead when folks are asking for legal redress, where folks are asking for what kind of prosecution will take place? We know for a fact that those who were killed the other day were killed by police. Where does it all lead? From a legal point of view, what can be done? Where do you go? Who do you ask and say, my child has been killed, what did they do? Where do we go from a legal point of view in this country where things just seem to be floating in the air? Nothing is landed right now.
Well, what we want to do is try and collect data of all these people who lost their loved ones, and we will table the same before IPOA and also demand that the Director of Public Prosecutions ensures investigations are done. The same zeal that is issuing charges on protesters is the same zeal he should use to proffer charges to the rogue policemen. So that is an expectation that will charge upon him on behalf of the people of Kenya, and we will expect him to exercise the same vigor and to ensure that justice is done to these families. Under my watch as LSK, we will not allow these victims to be swept away. We have seen previous mandamanos where people's issues are swept away. No one is talking about. You see, Baby Pendo only became a big issue because FIDA Kenya took it up. They prosecuted the police officers and further sued the state for compensation of the victims. And I hope, because the head of state said that they would account, that we will not need to go to court to ensure that the compensation are done for the victims that have suffered. So many are in hospitals. Yesterday it broke my heart to see it. Was it in Rongai? A child or two are shot. Seeing, I don't know if it was a father or family member, they're all sitting in a piki trying to rush this child to hospital, and the child was shot, I think, how many times at the back?
Yeah.
There are things that are unexplainable.
Too far. Is there any avenue, Faith, for accountability or demand for accountability legally from the National Police Service as an institution, from the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior as an office, over what we saw? The fact that there were police officers who used live ammunition.
We've even done a letter of complaint.
Is there anything that can you prosecute that and say they actually went against what's expected of them in the law?
Yeah. We'll be filing a suit on command responsibility on all the seniors who are in charge and in command, because most of these policemen take orders from above. They would not shoot to kill if they have not been given orders to shoot to kill, because we have seen that consistently developing. So those must be orders that they have been given. And if they're saying they're rogue, then they should profile them for prosecution. So if the DPP refuses, then we can try and launch private prosecution, but we will still sue for compensation for those victims, because what has happened is a painful experience. And my question even is, as we go along, what next? Because the grievances are still there. The reason why people are still gathering to go to the streets is because they feel they're still being ignored. Yes, the finance bill is the first step, but they still feel there are underlying issues that need to be dealt with, that need to be tabled. And the problem is, after these abductions, most people are not comfortable coming to sit down, because they feel that after that you shall be marked.
Yeah.
And the next thing you'll be also, people will be looking for you everywhere.
Yeah.
So we need to start having a change, and that change can only happen when you first have justice for these victims.
Now that the police are denying that they did not abduct anyone.
Yeah.
So how can we seek justice for victims of torture?
The ones who are able to come out, then we'll ask them we file petitions and seek redress, because indeed they were abducted. The kind of harrowing experiences they had can only be done by the police. And the fact that they were returned unarmed, some with warnings and instructions, some frightening them to either disappear, that's a very clear show that indeed it was by the police. So we will sue for the ones who are ready to come out, because the challenge is most are not willing, and you need someone to support an application saying this is what they went through. This is how their constitutional rights were violated, and hopefully the courts to make a declaration to avoid this happening again. And maybe if the courts are more proactive and take a very clear and hard stance, then we'll be able to see some level of progress of protection of the Bill of Rights in this country.
As you're taking all these action, are you doing this pro bono?
Yes.
Is the Law Society just doing this?
This is
for public
totally
good?
pro bono. In fact, the painful part sometimes is that you have to try and fundraise, because the victims that were arrested, in fact the 56, they don't have money to pay their bail.
Yeah.
So you end up now reaching further into your pocket to ensure that you set them free, because you don't want them staying in the cells for another day, another night. Yeah.
Faith, we thank you and the Law Society of Kenya for all that you've done. And we expect that you shall continue doing the same.
Yes,
Asante
our service to the country.
Asante sana. Faith Odhiambo is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. She's been here. We've been talking about, the rule of law, the place of the rule of law, the citizens, and how the government responds to their citizens.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.